So, if you guys been living under a rock, last few weeks, on August 5th, 2026, something hit the moon. And it's not an asteroid, it's not a meteor, but it was actually made by something human made. It was a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket, a leftover piece of a rocket that's been drifting through space for more than a year. So let's get some context around what happened and what led up to the crash. So my name is Chris, welcome to the universe, and let's get started. All right, so let's get some detailed context here. So the mission was launched in January 15th of 2025. SpaceX Falcon 9 mission launched uh, two commercial vehicles in this rocket. It's called the Firefly Aerospace's Blue Ghost Mission 1 and the iSpace's Resilience. The mission was used to standard Falcon 9 two-stage configuration. So the first stage booster itself, so as I said, you get Earth right here, right? And then all rockets do what they do. So they launch from a certain point, which is Cape Canaveral, and then they follow east to west in a trajectory. So they use up a lot of fuel because you have to realize that a main rocket itself has two separate components attached to the main rocket itself. So, and then you have the payload part, which is the last part, and then you have the main orange part of the rocket itself. So any rocket that does that, but SpaceX rockets are a little bit different, but follow the same way. So basically, what happens is that the first stage booster returns safely to Earth. So once these two rocket components are depleted, they start to separate and then they fall back to Earth. Or if they're fast enough, they still orbit around the planet. And then when you get to a second stage, the completed translunar injection, delivering the spacecraft towards the moon, basically when it's in orbit and it gets to a certain mileage away from the Earth, basically said it continues to use its fuel. And like I said, it's the second stage where it's giving the boosters a lot more activity, a lot more fuel used up to basically launch the rocket towards the moon. And once that's all depleted, it starts to separate. And it's already far enough from the Earth where, like I say, it's also fast enough to get away from Earth's gravity as it's doing its orbit and launching towards the moon. And once it's fast enough, it will stay with the payload. So it disconnects off the payload, and then the payload just keeps going, and it embarks a 3-day mission towards the moon. And realize in context, since the moon is about 238,000 miles, or in a scale like this, it's about 30 feet away, which is the next room. And I said that payload is just going at a certain rate of speed as it's embarking that 3-day mission. So over the next 19 months, the upper stage orbit evolved from Earth's gravity to the moon's gravity. In context, in that distance right there from that model, the 30 feet, where you start to feel that the lunar gravity presence is about, so let's say we're about 30 feet away from model Earth, which is off the frame. You start to feel the lunar gravity about here. And I said the moon's gravity will slow it down. Oh, sorry. Yeah, start slowing it down and then keeps it at a constant speed until the moon's gravity captures it. And it's fast enough that will basically, you can make a full orbit around the moon. But this solid state rocket booster, the upper stage, by August 5th, 2026, the orbital modeling confirmed an unavoidable collision with the moon near the Einstein crater. That's right. So the upper stage struck the lunar surface at 5,400 miles per hour, or 2.43 kilometers a second, weighing about 8,000 pounds, carrying measuring nearly 45 feet long. Just to understand what's going on, the dimensions of the crater after that. So basically, it was that solid state has been following that payload since its launch in January of 2025, and it's already fully depleted. And then it took 19 months, and then finally it reached the moon, and then it was slow enough to basically crash into the moon. So the crater's diameter is about 60 feet wide, or 18 meters, and less than 10 feet or 3 meters deep. And its location is about 19 degrees north and 266 degrees east at elevation of 511 meters. Basically, if you have a certain telescope, it may look like every other crater, but I think a lot of witnesses, when they were discovering that, they saw like there was something streaking and then some little bit of dust kicked up. So basically, that collision course between that solid state and the moon's surface, that was equivalent to at least 3 tons of TNT. That was powerful enough. And I say it created a crater because it's a high impact crater. And plus, since the moon doesn't have a lot of gravity and also doesn't have an atmosphere to absorb that energy, it's just a small object like that has enough power to blast a giant hole, creating a crater about 60 feet wide and 10 feet deep. And instances where meteors do that, they leave craters that are hundreds of feet wide and so hundreds of miles wide, or a few, about a couple thousand feet deep, or miles deep even. So yeah, like I said, these are high impact craters, but this one was equivalent to 3 tons of TNT, and that was the SpaceX rocket collision. So thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, I do have a playlist where you guys can look at some other new videos of mine. Sorry about the long time between each video. I'm just recovering from surgery right now. This is my leg so far. So yeah, sorry about the slowness right now, and I'm just getting through it and kind of getting through the last little bit of pain. But anyway, with that being said, I do have the playlist where you can binge watch my YouTube videos. I'll also link a new video in the pinned comment down below this video. So let me know how you like this video. Sorry it's a little slow, but thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video, and as always, keep exploring.